Good morning, happy Wednesday everyone, wherever you are connecting in the world. My name's Chris Riddell, for those of you that haven't met me before, and for those of you that have, hi, and thanks for joining us here. This is an exciting new era, it's an exciting new future. We are definitely in the craziest world that we've ever seen when we look at what's going on around us. But what we have built and what we've put together here over the last 6 weeks is a show and a vision into how we see the future of events and content. I've lined up with my team here some awesome people for us to chat with over the next 45 to 50 minutes or so. The thing I want to really share with you is this isn't scripted, it's raw. You're going to see some cool, fun stuff happen. We've put an enormous amount of effort into really trying to push the boundaries of how we create content and how we get that to you on a screen. But you're going to see things happen that we didn't plan, some that we did, and I encourage you to have a laugh with us as we go along that. And I think that's the thing that I want to share with you now over the next 45, 50 minutes as we go through this. The CR Live is going to be some really cool content over the next few weeks that we start bringing you. We've got an awesome team, apart from Saxton speakers, who are a big supporter of ours, and also the cool AV team show division that have helped to bring all of this technology here that you're seeing. And I just want to give you a little bit of a behind the scenes show and a little bit of a tour of what we've got here to show you how crazy this really is. So I'm going to cut over to Andrew now. Andrew's the guy that you can't see behind all of this. And this studio that we've got here that we have built in the last 6 weeks, this is custom built. There's nothing generic about this whatsoever. We've got screens here where we put some of our really cool content for the corporate events that we've already started doing with some of our clients around the world. And that's been a whole heap of fun doing that. We've got lights around here, we've got cameras. If you swing around here, you'll see my cue screen that Andrew's showing you there, and we can see all of the type of content and the feeds and the guests that we've got coming up in a sec. These video screens over here are some of my favorites. We've got some amazing animations that you can see that have been developed by our partners Interweave over the last couple of weeks, and we've really pushed the boundaries of what we're doing there. But the place that it all happens, the really cool space I want to take you back is over here. We're going to meet Kieran McCrory from Show Division. Kieran, hello, welcome, you're live online.
Hey everyone, how you going?
This is where it all happens. This is our show division control center. Kieran's the guy that's clicking the buttons, mixing all of the content in here and actually bringing you the stuff that you see. We've got Dorothy, who's a part of my team. Normally, many of you will see us, will know Dorothy. She's keeping an eye on the socials and the chats of what's going on there and giving me some of the content out there. And I'm really excited to be able to show you how we've pulled this together and some of the content that we've got coming for you over the next few weeks. I'm going to swing back around and take a view back over to my position over here. And we're going to take a look at some of the cool stuff that's been going out online, even over the last few weeks. We've all been looking at the socials, the memes that are out there and the crazy content. One of the ones I found the other day that I thought was really cool was an animation created by a guy on TikTok. Showing how the future of pizzas could be delivered. Take a look at this. I wonder if we're going to see bottle shops delivering booze and dropping those over into our houses anytime soon like that. The animation stuff that we're seeing out there online at the moment is just crazy. And I think that clearly people have got a lot more time now to do this stuff than ever. I'm shamelessly admitting also, I clearly am a TikTok user, but in my defense, I'm just watching TikTok content. I'm not contributing to any of it. I'm far too old to be on TikTok. I'd be very keen to to know if any of you are actually on it, if any of you even know what it is. I only found that towards the end of last year. The other one that I found that was really interesting, Donald Trump is a media hog. We've seen him dominate Twitter over the last few years. But one of the big things that came out over the last week or so was Donald Trump jumping on and talking about sanitizer and detergent, and potentially that it could be explored as to how we could use this to combat the crazy world of coronavirus. A comedian called Sarah Cooper then decided to make a video montage, a redo of what Donald Trump was saying. So she got her actions and got Donald Trump's overlay, pushed it all together. Take a look at what she created here.
We hit the body with a tremendous, whether it's ultraviolet or just very powerful light. And I think you said that hasn't been checked, but you're going to test it. And then I said, supposing you brought the light inside the body, which you can do either through the skin or in some other way. And I think you said you're going to test that too. Sounds interesting. Right, and then I see the disinfectant, where it knocks it out in a minute, 1 minute. And is there a way we can do something like that by injection inside or almost a cleaning? Because you see it gets on the lungs and it does a tremendous number in the lungs. So it'd be interesting to check that. So that you're going to have to use medical doctors with. But it sounds interesting to me.
Fantastic. It's good to see some of the different content that we've got created out there. The other thing that we've also managed to do over the last couple of weeks is pull together some really exciting people to chat to us about what's going on all around the world with the different pieces that we're seeing. The first person that I want to be able to introduce you to, a very good friend of mine, all the way from California, is our friend Vin Yang. Vin, hi, welcome to CR Live. It's crazy. We're running as we're jumped off a cliff. We're building a plane on the way down here. It's wild. How are you?
Good, man. And am I the first guest ever on CR Live?
You are. You were the last one to have a wild brilliant tech check.
Oh, that's awesome. No, man, dude, great to be here. It's been an emotional 5 weeks. It's been a bloody roller coaster, man.
What's life like now over in the US? I mean, you and I have chatted over the last week. In fact, that's how this whole studio idea came about. You and I chatting 5 and a bit weeks ago. What's life like now over in America?
Well, I feel like now, I mean, in the event space, that's kind of where my business is predominantly based in. It's starting to emerge in terms of people are looking at virtual now, whereas you know, just 3-4 weeks before, no one was looking at doing anything. Everyone was still in a bit of a panic mode. So it feels like we're kind of slowly coming out of it a little bit.
And your family, so you actually live just 20 minutes down the road from my house there in Huntington Beach, and I obviously am not there. I haven't been there for a while. How have your family, because they're with you, how have they dealt with things over there with lockdown?
Well, you know, I think from an entrepreneurial point of view, I panic like crazy. But from a family point of view, I've never been home this often in the last 5 years of my life. So I've definitely racked up a lot of brownie points as a dad and as a husband. However, you know, it's that part of my life is going great. But then there's that other side of my mind in terms of running the business, being a business owner. That part of me is kind of feeling the anxiety and the panic, whereas one side of me is lovely. So it's like lovely and anxiety mixed together. So I kind of feel crazy.
And the thing that we're all obviously noticing there is you're stood in your own studio. So this is like a studio meltdown, two of them connect here. Talk us through what you've got there. What's going on in your studio?
Okay, so I turned my double garage into a bit of a studio so I can still serve my clients. Yeah. And right now I've got kind of one camera that's facing me. This is the main camera I deliver. Then I've got another camera over here so I can take you through some of the workshop stuff. And this is a lovely little piece of technology. It's a Samsung Flip 2 that I'm currently using as a digital flip chart. However, it's a little bit laggy and locks up sometimes. So I've ordered a Microsoft Hub 2 on the way. So hopefully that's going to be better than this. This is, again, us pushing the boundaries as educators and trainers and speakers. So again, back to this camera here. I've got one other one as well, which I've set up, which is a bit more of an intimate one where, you know, my unique value proposition is really doing a bit of close-up magic. So when I speak, I often use magic as my metaphor. So for example, if I was to show you one here, Magic to me is just a problem you can't solve. And you see, most people can't solve magic because magic, again, is a problem. Now, you can't solve that from where you're looking. But with my sessions, I want to share with you a different perspective to help you solve the problems you couldn't solve by looking at it from a different point of view. So by having that, the angle changes, keeps people engaged, combined with using my slides and being able to still engage the audience with that medium. All of that together, I've still been able to serve my clients and keep the business running.
And how, well, I mean, I'm fascinated. We both always talk about technology. How have you decided there? And I mean, because it's like the analogy I gave earlier was we're jumped off a cliff, we're building a plane on the way down. How have you decided what type of tech to even use? And how on earth do you then stick it all together?
Well, when this first hit, I panicked. And in America, they have a wonderful return policy. So I walked into a camera store and I said, just give me everything I need for live streaming. Give me everything I need. So I bought $10,000 cameras and I bought things that I definitely didn't need. But I just figured during the experimentation phase, it's messy. Yeah. And if you're trying to be super effective and efficient, I don't think that's the best. Oh, definitely didn't need the $10,000 camera. Could have just used something simple like a Sony A5100, for example. And
analogy, we were talking about magicians a few days ago, and I love that video. If you haven't seen Vin's video, go and have a look at the one on his website with the talking about this era that we're in and the comparisons with before. Give us a bit of a flavor of what you think with that.
Well, I mean, if you could bring the picture up, Chris, there's a magician named Val Valentino who's the masked magician. And some of you may remember him when you see his picture from the late 1990s. So Val Valentino, he went on national TV to reveal magic tricks, to tell people how magic was done. And in essence, he destroyed the world of magic. Because again, without secrets, magicians are just, kind of lame. So as a result, he destroyed the world of magic and he killed the world of magic. And you'd notice that magic didn't really appear on TV in the 2000s, in the early 2000s, but magic kind of came back on all the Got Talent programs around 2007, 2008. So magic died for a while. So what Val Valentino did is he didn't kill the world of magic. He forced magicians to innovate, because forever magicians were doing the trick where they saw the woman in half. We kept relying on old tricks to give our audiences the same experience. We never created new experiences. So Val Valentino, revealing all these old tricks, put magicians into a state of forced innovation. And I feel like that's kind of what's happening right now to the events industry, every industry, is that the Val Valentino of our era is the coronavirus. And what's important for us to do now is to understand that to create an experience people have never experienced before means that we need to collaborate with people we've never collaborated with before. That's how magicians got through it. They collaborated with engineers, psychologists, people who do hypnosis, and that's how we created new pieces of magic that you see today.
I've been, this is fascinating because I've been talking with some of our friends this side of the water around how speakers need to lift the game now. We need to show clients and we need to take them on that journey. I think the reality is now technology that we once feared that was going to replace us now is an opportunity for us to do differently. And I think I love your studio there, Vin. I'm a massive fan of it, and I can see some really cool stuff coming out of that. How do you see our events industry, if you had to put a crystal ball in front of you now, you and I have been doing this for years, how do you see the next 12 to 18 months looking for events from your perspective that you're seeing over there out of the USA?
Well, what I'm currently seeing in the US is all my clients now are shifting their attention to virtual. I mean, Microsoft being one of my clients who've realized and put out a public statement, they're no longer doing any live events until July of 2021. And all of the events I'm doing with them has completely turned virtual. So now that people are not as panicky, they're now realizing that we're not going to be able to come together for a while. And we need to still train our people, add value to our people, add value to our membership base. And they're now being forced to look at virtual. And to me, if as speakers, as an industry, we raise the bar, then virtual is something that will stay in the future. It will stay around into the future, which I love because I don't have to travel. I finished this with you, Chris, and I'm 8 steps from dinner and my wife and my son. So to me, if we don't raise the bar, now as the clients are being shifted and forced to look at virtual. If we all do a bad job as an industry right now, they're going to go, oh, well, we tried virtual, but it was crap. It was a terrible experience. Whereas if we raise the bar and we do a good job now, this is going to be a complete new marketplace that will stick around in the future. And to me, that's what's exciting is we've always had to get on a plane. Yeah. Every event we did meant 3 days away from the family.
Yeah.
What if it meant just 2 hours away from the family?
Yeah.
So I think if we raise the bar, this is something that could stick around.
Absolutely. I love the concept of reimagining what this looks like and seeing how we can raise that bar. Vin, virtual high five to you. Thank you so much for spending the time with us all the way from California. We'll chat very soon. Thanks, buddy. Thanks, Michael Dixon is going to be our next creative guru into our new future ahead. If any of you have got any questions or you want to ask anybody anything, then put them into the comments field that you're seeing there on the socials, and Dorothy will share those back over with me, and I can see those comments coming through, and we can either pass them to Michael or myself or anybody else here that's in the team. It's great to have you connected. You're on CR Live here this morning. We're here from our purpose-built custom studio in Cheltenham, which is where we built it in the warehouse, and we showed you a little bit of a behind the scenes earlier. I now want to bring on another friend of mine, Michael Dixon, who runs the Open Mic online session, streaming, whatever you want to call it. I was very happy to be on his show just a week or so ago. Michael's been standing by. I could see him in the screens there with his guitar, getting ready to groove his stuff. Michael, hi, welcome on to CR Live. You're officially the second guest ever to join on.
I'm trying to think of a bigger highlight in my life, and I'm struggling to think of one. I've got 2 kids. You know, I've traveled the world. I've done a bunch of things, but nothing comes close to being the second ever guest.
This is the future.
I'm Chris Riddell live.
Boom.
It's exciting, man. Well done. Congratulations to you. You've been working hard, and you're 13 minutes in, and you're already kicking ass. So well done.
Thank you. This is it's terrifying. The first question is, and I forgot, I was going to actually have a drink before we went on live, but we'll talk about that in a little moment.
It's 9 a.m. somewhere.
What is the new acceptable time now when we're all in isolation to start drinking? Where are you prepared to share that publicly? What time you start drinking?
You're asking the wrong guy. You're asking the wrong guy. It was acceptable for me pre-COVID-19, you know, for a Chardonnay with your eggs Benedict. Yeah, mimosa in the morning. Yeah, express yourself. Do what you need to do to get through and be who you got to be in this world. Crazy old world of ours.
And you've got kids. You've got beautiful kids that I see you posting online. How's this new world of home more, or are you home more? How's it changed anything?
Yeah. Like you, I mean, with speaking for a living and leading programs and all of that stuff, it's a lot of travel. Yeah. And when you're not traveling, you are at home, so there is that time with the kids. But now it's full time, 24/7, which I think it's a lot harder on Kate, my beautiful wifey, than it is on me and the kids, because she's got to deal with 3 boys in this house. But I am perfecting the cubbies, you know, the forts that we build in the living room, in the bedroom, in this studio that we've built in. We're getting good, man. We're like a little team of architects that transition between architects and creatives to savages that just run around wild at all hours of the night. It's cool. It's fun. It's a great time.
And I love the fact that you have built a studio which is so completely different to any other studio I've seen. We've got other friends of mine joining very shortly with their own studios. Yours is probably, quite honestly, the most creative one, which I'm not surprised. You've got fairy lights in there even. And
you're always flirting with me, Chris. You got to stop that, man.
I love your retro mic thing. That was a weird gesture I just made there. But yeah, I love that. Love it. Like, where'd you get your inspiration from for this stuff?
Oh, man, open your eyes in the morning or close them at night. Inspiration is everywhere if you're looking for it. It's a beautiful, vibrant, alive world. And it's a very, it's a sad, scary, tragic time for a lot of people. And that's all of us. And we're going through something, unprecedented, but just something that is really bizarre. And inside of that bizarreness, there can be a lot of a lot of hope, a lot of beauty, a lot of intimacy. It's how you want to see it, and more importantly, what you want to make with what you're feeling about what's going on around you.
Oh, and I want to tap into that hope thing, Mike, because you and I have talked about this a bit here, and there's no doubt this is a really, really horrible time for a lot of people. It's scary, and we're going to talk to a psychologist a little bit later in this episode about some of that. But how do we now use this as an opportunity? And I'm talking not from a technology basis, because we've talked with Vin about that, but how do we use this now as an opportunity from a creative and a mindset basis to do what Vin was doing, that lift the bar, change the game? Is this the era now where we can really actually make it happen? Is that where we are?
Yeah, hopefully, fingers crossed. And I think, there's multiple ways of looking at it, but it not just in a reaching up and out kind of a way, in trying to progress and what's that next new bright shiny thing, but it can also be a sinking back and a surrendering into who you once were before the world that we grew up in or that we've grown comfortable with dug its teeth into us. Because there's a lot of stuff in the world that we're transitioning out of that I think a lot of us agree we wouldn't mind leaving back there. The slowing down, spending more time with people, connecting more intimately, even if it's through a screen, but that hunger and desire for deeper, more meaningful connections. And also this explosion, like you said, of creativity that's happening, not just with TikToks, but people are painting, they're renovating rooms in their house, they're out in the garden, they're getting tactile and touching things again. And that, I think that's where the real opportunity exists. It's not just looking for high-tech, digital, futurist, wow, we can move everything online, but thinking, wow, I can get back to who I am or who I wanted to be before the capitalist machine got me, and the mortgage and the kids and the career and all those kind of things. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Totally. I am. And that's where I love your open mic. This is a shameless promo here for your open mic session that you run. Completely different to any other collective group that I've seen online. And correct me if I'm wrong, we haven't rehearsed this chat. We're not going down a script here, but it's around dangerous conversations. It's around being able to be free to have dangerous and challenging conversations. I love it. And what have you, like, you are in a discovery as much as any of us are, despite how crazy creative you are. What's got you both surprised out of your online sessions that you've been doing?
I mean, last night we've been changing the time slots. We've been doing days and nights and mixing it up and just making it up as we go, essentially, which is my background as a jazz musician. That comes naturally to me. But last night we explored joy. How can we put more joy into our job if we still have one? How can we bring or create or cultivate it in our work, our life, our relationships? And what came up, which was interesting, was this whole question around permission. That even though we all love and we crave joy, there's such a block so much of the time that we just can't let ourselves go. We can't drop the armor. We can't just lean into the euphoric, innocent magic of being alive. You know, we've got to keep it professional. We've got to be an adult, or we've got to be a CEO or whatever else it is. When it's like, I just want to giggle because that guy tripped and fell over a little bit. It's funny, you know. Not that all joy should be at the expense of someone else, but you know what I'm saying, right, Chris?
I do, and I'm itching at the fact that you've got a guitar there, and you're wanting to.
I keep picking it up, don't I?
I know. It's like
I don't play guitar. It's just
you don't.
I'm actually a piano player, and I have a beautiful Wurlitzer right there, which is an old instrument from the 70s that Stevie Wonder and Herbie Hancock and all these guys played, which I love. I've got lots of vintage. But this is just at my fingertips, and you mentioned guitar, so I couldn't help but pick it up. And I'll play you 4 chords that I think work really well together. Here's one. Here's another. Here's another. And here's the last one. And I've called this the Chris Riddell live chord.
I love it. I love your work, Michael. Thanks so much for being our second ever guest. A better experience than you've ever had with anything else in your life, even better than your kids. We'll leave it right there. That's cemented into the history books now. Our next session now is one we're actually going to do quite regularly. Thanks also again to all of you for joining CR Live here. We're broadcasting live on LinkedIn. We're on Facebook and YouTube Live. Our next session is one we're going to to do quite regularly. I have brought together some of the best tech experts to talk about what technology things and trends we're seeing going on at the moment. So first of all,
Michael.
I'd like to bring in Rich Haler, who is a really good friend of mine. He'll be coming on and joining us in a second. And we're going to talk about how technology really is a big thing. Have we gone offline?
No, we're online.
Oh, sorry. I was told we'd gone online. Sorry. There you go. First up that we had. Our tech panel that we've got on is Rich Haler. First of all, bringing him on here. He's coming from his studio. You notice a little bit of a pattern that's going on here. We've got people that have built their studios in their homes, in their garages, in their living rooms as well. Rich Haler is one of my very good friends, a tech expert. Hi, Rich. How are you doing? Welcome to CR Live.
Hey Chris, good morning. How are you?
I'm awesome. How's life for you and your family in this crazy world of ISO, despite the fact you look like you're sat in an amazing TV studio there? How's things been going for you?
Yeah, pretty well, but I think we're all looking forward to the lockdown rules sort of easing up so we can get out and see people. Yeah, can't wait.
And the question has to go to you as well. What time is now an appropriate time to start drinking in this world of lockdown? What's the earliest you start? I don't even know if your wife would be happy you sharing that online. Does she keep a bottle next to the bed?
Well, Chris, if you had asked me that question maybe 5 or 6 years ago, sure, maybe I would have already popped open a beer by now. But with 2 young kids, it's usually a bit later in the evening, but yeah.
Things are moving quickly. I also want to bring in Gav, who's going to be part of our tech panel. Hi, Gav. Welcome to the panel. And again, surprise, surprise, you've got a studio that you've built there. How long ago did you build that studio?
I do, Chris. Yeah, thanks for having me on the first ever CR Live. It's going very well and looks great. I built my studio about 2 to 3 weeks ago. It took a couple of weeks to build and get all set up. Obviously, there's a bit that goes into these things. So similar to Vin, I've built mine in the double garage. So I've split that in half and got the car squished into one half and set up all of this in the other half, which is looking really good.
Cool. And I remember when you put those the things that you can see behind you there, those white plastic boards. I don't even know what to call them. What are they? What are
they're actually just a PVC panel. So they're just off eBay, pretty cheap. So they're just a plastic bumpy panel to give it a nice, cool looking effect with the lights streaming down across the top of them.
And you've backlit them, and you've got what's called DMX lights. You were telling me earlier there that have you can see the coloured lights. You're gone all tech nerd. I think this is probably a really good point now. I mean, Rich, we'll start with you here. Streaming technology, it's gone bananas. I mean, even when we were doing tech checks before we came on air here, we were dealing with speed issues and getting videos synced. And how crazy has this been? Suddenly, this world where we've all been in offices and now we're in our homes trying to build studios and connect all this equipment together. What's the thing that you reckon's been the most important when you're looking at what tech to use?
Sure. Well, the thing is, I mean, we've all been stuck at home basically for a really prolonged period of time, and there's this, deep human need to connect, and I think really that's really driven video conferencing to become much more widespread. Typically people use their desktops or webcams, to do video conferencing, and what was interesting is just a few weeks ago there was huge demand for webcams online, and webcams sort of doubled in price. Even now, if you go online and have a look at Logitech's flagship webcam, which is a Logitech Brio 4K, that normally retails for under $300, and that's now retailing between $450 and $700 on Amazon and eBay. But what's great is we've all got these smart devices nowadays, and there's a huge plethora of video conferencing apps that are available on those smartphones. So people are also becoming a lot more familiar, with these apps, whether it's in a business context or even just on a personal basis to catch up.
And we were having issues earlier on with, I'm being honest here, when we were trying to do tech checks with speed of video, it was jittery, it was lagging. And I mean, you're a tech guy, and we were struggling to find out this. What's the pressure now as a dad and as a business person that you're suddenly under, more so than ever, to make all this stuff work? And then even what do we think that's doing to our networks out there, be it a 4G network or be it our NBN that comes into the house? And this is crazy. And for us as tech people to struggle, what hope have we got now for parents that don't do this stuff normally?
Well, I think, all of us are getting more familiar with technology, particularly video conferencing technology, really as because we need to, because we're kind of forced into this environment. But the other thing I think that's interesting is, is that people are actually quite a lot forgiving at the moment, because we're all trying to work in very sort of restricted, difficult environments, managing kids and, just dealing with this crisis. So I think it's a bit of a balance on both sides, and I really feel that, over the coming months, things will just improve. I mean, as you've seen on this panel, a lot of us have, including myself, we've actually only recently built studios. This is actually the first time I'm using a lot of the equipment in this studio myself.
Yeah. I don't think you're, I mean, in a normal world, you're in the IT leadership space, senior IT leadership. You work in a office in the city of Melbourne. Do you think once this era has gone that we're just going to keep everyone at home and there's going to be this mass demand to have home offices? Or do you think we're going to go back to people really craving to be in those office environments? They crave the human connection and they're sick of the internet dropping out at home. They haven't got an IT department to ring up and give shit to. I mean, are we going to go back to a reality where we want to get back into an office and have somebody else do it all for us?
I really think it's going to be a hybrid of both of those. So, what's been great is, I mean, this crisis, as awful as it has been, it's really, forced us into the situation that and many companies are really seeing the value of home working. For people, give them more flexibility. So I really think it's going to be a hybrid situation. I also really think that companies in the future are going to, maybe innovate more with video conferencing and web conferencing technology. Having said that, Apple just released their 13-inch MacBook Pro literally a day or two ago, and it's still got a 720p camera. In that MacBook.
So true. It's shocking. It's shocking.
I really expect that over the coming months we are going to see some innovation in that space.
Gav, your thoughts on tech? And actually, before we do that, what time did you start drinking? And be honest, because I know the answer to this. What time did you start drinking this morning?
Well, you got to when you're going on your first ever live stream, you got to start early enough. And having kids with the homeschooling and all of that, it's drives you into a different state of what you would normally be in. But just thought I'd have a sneaky one this morning to ease the nerves coming onto the show.
Are your family, because you're a dad, you're a husband, are your family giving you even more grief and pain than ever around the TVs not syncing and the laptops crapped itself? I mean, what's life like with you and tech in the Red Drop house?
Yeah, it's certainly interesting, especially, like you say, being a tech guy and having been that IT department where people ring up and complain to. In my past sort of life, it's sort of the kids automatically turn to me for when their internet's not working and when things aren't going right. And actually, when I was building the studio, I had to turn off the internet for a couple of minutes. And within about 30 seconds, I think that all three kids came running out and so the internet's not working, and had a mild little meltdown. So yeah, they definitely rely on that extra sort of technology now, especially more than ever with the schooling and being able to connect with their teachers and their friends and online through their games and all of that. It's very crucial for them to be able to have that interaction, or otherwise they're stuck at home doing not much really.
Yeah. I think we can see there. I'm just going to confirm you are not drunk if you're watching CR Live. We are showing you some vision sideways here, or maybe you are drunk and you are seeing it sideways at the same time. I'll leave you to work out which one you are. But that there is, I think, a time lapse, Gav, of you building your studio. You sat there now in just 2 weeks ago in your garage.
Yeah, so that's me and my middle child, Bryson. We were just putting everything together, building the frame and getting all the plaster on. And it was good help to hold things whilst I sort of run around trying to get everything done and learn how to build at the same time. Obviously, being a tech guy, sort of building it was a bit of a learning curve. And even for myself, with a lot of the streaming technology is all quite new as well to me. So whilst I've got the IT background, a lot of the, Rich was talking about using your iPhone and your smartphone. I actually have a digital SLR camera similar to Vin, the Sony a6400, and having that linked into the computer and how that all connects, it was still a learning curve for myself even to go through that process and work out what was going to work, what wasn't, the audio that was going to be best, and lighting. It all sort of plays a big part into how everything connects and how it looks on screen, really.
And lighting's we've, between us guys, we've been chatting about what are the important things with a studio. I think lighting and audio came out pretty quickly on top of those. What have you got there? Go back to you, Rich. What have because you've got a crazy background there. What have you done for lighting behind and in front? What are you seeing there?
Sure. Well, I actually have a key light just in front of me here off to the side, about 45 degrees. And behind me, you'll see there's some colored lights. What's great is, I've just picked these up. These are Philips Hue. It's a light strip behind me. And what's fantastic with this is you can play around with the colors. You can play around with the temperature of the light as well, and also the intensity. So it gives you a lot of flexibility.
Gav, your lighting, what have you got?
Yeah, similar. So I've got actually got two key lights, the Elgato key lights. So I've got one at each angle. So one's a key light, one's a fill light. And then I've got a little hair light up in the roof that sort of highlights the back of your hair to get that 3-point lighting system. And then obviously the coloured lights behind me to give it a bit of depth as we sort of come in to separate that front and background rather than just a plain white wall, which, that does work for when you're doing some stuff, but having this, dedicated sort of space to be able to do the filming stops, the nude shower run from the partner or the kids that we're seeing on the Zoom calls at the moment. It just sort of gives you that quiet space to be able to come out and do these sort of videos without being interrupted.
Cool. Thanks for both of your time today, guys. And thanks also for being the first ever tech panel on CR Live. Gav, I'll let you go back to necking your Jack Daniels and sliding your way under the table. And Rich, we'll catch up later. Thanks for joining us this morning still even. Cool. So the other person I want to bring you to all the way over from the other side of the world in just a moment is my brother, Richard Riddell. Richard is someone that's been also involved in online learning and helping people to do things a little bit differently. Richard is a educator within the private sector, and he helps kids go through uni. So he does private education over there. He's also had recently to move his entire business from being in a classroom or one-on-one environment to now shifting over to being online as well, and doing that in a very, very different way. The world's changed. The interesting thing is, apart from it being 2:30 in the morning over there in the UK at the moment, is that the lockdown measures are quite drastically different to anything that we've had over here in Australia. Hey, Rich, how's life in lockdown in central London, or in the west side of London?
I'm probably the only speaker that hasn't got a drink in my hand, actually. I'm probably the only one that should.
And it's 2:30 in the morning. You should definitely have a drink. What's the last few weeks been like in London? Apart from the fact that you're clearly going to be getting better weather than us soon, how's lockdown been?
So apart from learning how to clean every week with my wife, the first few weeks started off pretty tough, not to be honest. I mean, to have a lockdown in a city like London, that's a pretty big change of lifestyle, I'd say. But the last couple of days, we're now into day 45 or 50, lost track. But it's got easier. We're allowed out.
And education's changing. I mean, the school situation over there in the UK. What are as you being in the education space, even though you're not a parent, how's the school? What's the school situation like at the moment?
So, a bit of a mix. I've been a little bit surprised how poor schools have been to adapt to being able to use technology like Microsoft Teams to teach in a better way. I think from a good side of it, we've seen tutoring agencies really ramp up their online tutoring, but the majority of schools over here have been actually really poor at facilitating and teaching anything at all.
And as far as going into this next year, the bit that I'm always really interested to chat to you is around this learn to learn. How do we learn out of crisis and situations, and how can we use situations that have happened exactly like we're in now to be able to relearn what we do? What do you think in your space that you also work in, that relearning, how to learn new skills? What's the future look like there?
I think what's most important is if you think back to your favorite teacher at school. As adults, we're no different. We want to learn in an engaging way. And most of us, if we think about our favorite teacher, they were the ones that were inspiring, would teach using energy, and would teach through experience. So rather than just didactically standing in front of a board or standing on a Zoom screen, would get you to do stuff. And I think that's the real opportunity here, is the people that can help learn and teach others in a workspace or in the school space, they'll be the ones that succeed.
And if you had to pick something that you think is going to be fundamentally different in the way that we do learning, or the type of learning that we have to do out as we come out of this situation, say into next year, what do you think is the biggest thing that's going to change in the schooling environments? I mean, we've had already massive examples over in Asia and Australia and the Asia Pacific area around how schools have suddenly had to shift online. They've suddenly had to do heaps of learning online. They weren't ready for that. Is that something that we're going to see continuing as we go forwards? Is that going to morph into something else even bigger or more interesting? What's your view on that from there in the UK?
So we're going to become more elective. That's what I feel in the UK. So much of the learning in schools is about your core subjects, the things you have to do. Whereas now we're seeing kids in England, I'm sure it's the same in Oz, learning how to bake, learning how to cook, learning new, more important skills like resilience they can get on demand. I think that's the key. Schools will have to innovate. They'll have to knock down some of those walls they've had in place for hundreds of years, quite literally, and help students engage in a much more elective, choice-based way. And it's about time too.
And as far as even then the work that you're doing in the breakthrough thinking space for adults and businesses, what are the parallels that you think that apply there for us? Where do you think there's some stuff that we've come from our childhood that's relevant?
So I think the challenge for adults is we're much more time focused, whereas when you're at school and as a kid, you have to be there. So we're now making choices between where we spend all of our time. So any new learning, number one, we have to know how to learn. Then number two, we have to be much more time critical with where we spend that.
Cool, thank you very much. I think the last time I saw you, Richard, and I've got a bit of video here to show it, is you and I were driving in a Discovery in December somewhere in the middle of the English countryside, and you managed to get it stuck. And there we go. That's you, the only person in the world that I know could get a Land Rover Discovery stuck in an inch of mud. And you were more worried about your tennis lesson that you were needed to get back to there. What's the weather looking like at the moment? That was a really shocking part of the year, December. I don't know why I keep coming back to London in December. What's it like there at the moment?
It's warming up. We're in lockdown and we're allowed to go out once a day. So it really is about maximising that chance to get out. And to make the most of it, I suppose.
Thanks, Richard. Go get yourself a drink, and thanks for joining us at such a ridiculous time of the morning on CR Live. We're almost coming to the end. We've got one more person. This is one of my favorite sessions and topics that we've got now, is around this consumer behavior change that we've seen. People, humans, we're all experiencing all kinds of different emotions. When you look at the crazy stuff with toilet rolls that have been hoovered up in the supermarkets over the last few weeks, it feels like that stuff's kind of getting back to a little bit of a new normal. Stock levels are kind of returning back to some kind of normality in the supermarkets. But also it's the behavior that we're seeing outside. I don't know what you guys have been seeing in the last few weeks, but I kind of feel like we're seeing a little bit more on the conspiracy theories that have been going out there, and some of the other different stories that have been going on, whether it be 5G towers spreading coronavirus. Are they responsible for that? Is the government behind some kind of crazy plot here to make the world go bananas? Even last week, the vision you're seeing now on the screen are 5G towers that were on fire in New Zealand, and the fire service there having to go and put those out. And we've seen heaps of these kind of stories over the last few weeks. We've seen them in France, in the UK, lots of conspiracies going out there. And I've got somebody to help give us a bit of an insight into some of the psychology and the human behavior. Please welcome Sabina Read, who's also a commentator on Channel 7. You're on the Daily Edition, the morning show. You've been on Sunrise. You're also an ambassador for Seek. I don't know what else. Is there anything else I've missed off there, Sabina?
Oh, look, I mean, I'm a garden variety psychologist that actually does have a couch and sits people down and discusses their inner child as well. But I'm feeling like the odd man out here because I haven't built my own studio.
But it's looking great there. And I think the simplicity of it as well. I mean, you can now just get a laptop out, you can connect and live stream. It's easy. And as long as you've got some great light, you're pretty good as far as getting this stuff online. On the topic of the drinking, what time in your household, as a psychologist, here's digging into your life now, what's an acceptable time from a psychologist to start drinking in Australia in the morning? Or is it not?
Okay, so, well, that's a loaded question, because you asked about what's the right time to drink in the morning. And I think the, socially correct answer is you don't drink in the morning. But I'm not sure if I'm going to give you my psychologist answer or my Sabina answer. Look, I think morning drinking is not a great idea, but sometimes a social drink, and in lockdown, well, the rules are being broken. Or at least I've heard from friends that they are.
You've heard allegedly from friends that they are. How does I've got other friends that are in the psychology space, and I often have this discussion. How do you, as a psychologist, deal with this type of situation and environments that you're in? Not just from your own personal perspective, but with a family. And how do you stop, or how do you get yourself through this? Because it's traumatic and it's challenging, these times that we're in, for the best of people. And as a psychologist, what kind of things do you do?
Well, the first thing, Chris, I think, is to acknowledge that I don't have all the answers. People often say to me, your family must be doing so well and your marriage must be amazing and your kids must be perfect. Well, that's all absolutely ridiculous. Yeah. I am a big one for normalising the whole gamut of the human experience. So during a time like this, we're going to lose our minds. We're going to get frustrated. We're going to angry, we're going to get short-tempered with people around us, but we're also going to hopefully find new ways of being and ways to tolerate the uncertainty and the fear and the not knowing that goes along with an experience like this. So for me, it's this experiencing both sides of the coin, the challenging and also the hopeful.
And do you and that's a pretty continuous message I get from the other people I know in this clinical psychology space. They all say a very similar type of thing. Do you think, though, with these type of events that are, I hate to use this word, unprecedented, it is the most overused words of the era that we're in, but in these really different times that we're in, do we then see a spike in what I was referring to earlier in these conspiracy theories? Is that true, or am I just more in tune with weird stuff like that happening perhaps than I normally would? Or is this a time where people get worried and they're trying to look for an answer for everything, and there has a little bit of fear thrown in there as well?
No, I think we do keep using the word unprecedented times. We've never seen this before, but I'm going to beg to differ on that. I reckon in some ways we have seen challenging times before. Humans have experienced the unknown. Humans have sat with overwhelming fear and uncertainty. And then with regards to conspiracy theories, we have to somehow join the dots in our minds. We're grasping for trying to make sense of what's happening. And we're looking for predictability, we're looking for control, and so we make things up. And if we look back in other times in history, we've seen this before. Let's think about the witch hunts. Witches were blamed for everything from a lame horse to a dying child to freak weather extremes. And now, we thought that a witch was someone who was either had a high libido, a hairy lip, crooked nose. Look, at the moment in lockdown, and women were predominantly witches. Let's just say that in lockdown, with all the beauticians closed and other changes going on, we're all probably could be called a witch, many of us at this point. Does that mean that we are responsible for COVID-19? Absolutely not. It just means that over time, over history, it's a very human experience to try to make sense of what we don't understand.
And you and I were chatting the other day around also, if you have been in a really crappy situation in life before, if you've been through turmoil, if you've been through a horrific life event, does that mean that you're then better prepared and more resilient, for another buzzword to throw in there? Does that mean you're better prepared, more resilient and more ready for these type of events, or does it not make any difference? Is it something else that helps us to deal with chaos and uncertainty?
It's not the exposure to chaos and not the exposure to uncertainty that creates resilience. It's what we do with the challenging times that we've been in. So you can line up 100 people who have been to hell and back, and some of them will find a new way to be. They'll find a way to grow, to thrive, to change the way they think, to change the way they behave. And they'll come out of that with a resilience, to use your word. But other people in that 100-person lineup will go through hell and back and not be able to reflect, not be able to change the way they think or feel, and they'll repeat the same experience again and again and again. So really, it's on us. It's on I think we have so much more agency than we give ourselves credit for to think about, and you've already talked about this on today's show. What are people doing to recreate, to rethink, to find new ways of being so that they can thrive and cope? But not everyone's asking those questions, and yet we are all capable of asking ourselves those questions.
It is. It's challenging. There's no doubt, and people are trying to find their new normal. It is bizarre. It's a bizarre environment that we're in. On the topic earlier, we saw with the conspiracy theories. I'm not going to wade in and try and debunk any conspiracy theories here, because I'll end up getting somebody dumping a cow's head at my front door when I get home and think I'm completely crazy. But the reality is, going and setting fire to 5G mobile phone towers, even if you're not a tech person, even if you don't get tech, I mean, this really is probably not the space that we want to be in at the moment. I can't imagine that there really is much behind 5G towers spreading coronavirus. Why do people jump on this? And are we going to see this peter out? And if we do have friends that are doing this, should we be stopping them and going, hey, this isn't probably the healthiest thing? And I liken this a little bit to the anti-vaxxer movement. It's this really crazy notion of this weird stuff that we see going on, but what should we do about it? Should we try and stop people thinking this? Should we try and convince them otherwise? Or where does the responsibility sit?
Yeah, we don't want to fan the flames of crazy, but let's make sense of why people do this. If you're wanting to garner support for your cause, the best way to do that is to go against another cause. That's how you're going to pull people onto our team. So there are a lot of movements, a lot of believers, a lot of belief systems, and there always has been, as I said, in history. We've seen that with witchcraft, with religion, all kinds of domains, that I can put my cause on the table and bring the limelight to my cause by pushing against another cause. Yeah. So I like to look at this from more of a global perspective. I don't want to buy into the specifics of what people, these conspiracy theories are about. I'm more interested in the human behaviour that sits behind it and what might be driving this behaviour. And it makes sense to me that we've got 100%. This topic on a world stage at the moment. Yeah. Why not hide this topic that everyone's talking about to highlight the cause that I'm wanting more people to understand, to see my point of view and my perspective from?
And the human behavior bit's the stuff I'm always fascinated in. We've had somebody ask a question online. It's from Chris Ray. At the beginning of working from home, he's saying the team was really motivated. They were really inspired. They were loving it. And this is kind of a thing I predicted a few weeks back. In fact, when I was sat with Anne from Saxton, which you've also gone and have a chat with, Sabina, I was talking around this romance that we had immediately with, wow, it's so cool to be at home. We've got Zoom, we're doing drinks on a Friday by camera. My big prediction was day one, that was going to really run out really quickly. Chris has now turned around and said online, hey, we're kind of at a place now where people aren't feeling quite so engaged. How do we re-motivate now? How do we get people over into this next part? Because we're not suddenly all going to return back to a normal next week. Things are not going to go back to how they were. The romance period has finished. We're now into this era of we're realizing this is around for a while. It's not quite as fun or as sexy as what we once thought. How do we get people to see that this is, or re-motivate them back into this next era? What's your thoughts on that?
It's a really good question, and I draw the parallel between the trajectory of any relationship. So the honeymoon is over, but that doesn't mean we can't settle into a new rhythm. And the way we do that is we acknowledge what we've lost along the way. I'm going to continue to use the metaphor of a relationship, the excitement, the daily sex, the thinking about someone, texting someone, calling someone. That honeymoon period for us in lockdown is over. But what does it mean for moving forward? There's so many opportunities. I think when we complain, this is kind of universal relationship theory as well. When we complain about anything, when something's not working for us, whether it's professionally or personally or anywhere in between, there's an unmet need that we haven't acknowledged. So when we say, I'm kind of not liking this working from home anymore, what is the unmet need that's loudest for us at that time? And that's going to vary from person to person and from employer to employer and from family unit to family unit. And if the unmet need that's loudest for me at the moment is laughter or joy or talking to girlfriends or dancing or painting my nails or, seeing clients, whatever it is that I'm missing most, we need to acknowledge that and then try to find ways to honour that in whatever within the parameters that we're living in at the moment. But to pretend that we're not living with some kind of loss and grief in this time is kind of ignoring what's making it feel so distressing or what's making it feel like the honeymoon period has left. So for the person that's just written in and asked that question, what is it that they're missing most at this time, and how can they start to cultivate that within the new domains of lockdown and working confines? It's a kind of a different question than saying when will this be over and can we return to where we've come from. We're not going to return to where we've come from, and that's okay too. We're going to create something that in many ways I think is going to work better for a lot of us.
I'm also, I was digging around on your bio yesterday, and I was intrigued that you've been a psychologist on Married at First Sight at some point in there. I am shamelessly going to admit I did get a slight addiction to maths this season because the world had gone to absolute bananas, and Married at First Sight became the best thing that was going on in those few weeks that really distracted me. First question is, what makes somebody want to go on Married at First Sight? Like, really, real question that nobody ever asks or put out there. What do people that go on Married at First Sight really want? Is it the Insta likes? Is it the followers? Or they want to be on TV? What's the psychology behind that? Give us a bit of an insight.
Look, I think there's always going to be people that want the fame and want their 15 minutes in the limelight. They want to get their followers up on social media. They want to create some kind of business after that. However, having said that, the desire for love and the desire to be loved is so strong and has been since the dawn of time that I do think there's a part of, I always say humans are made up of parts, and those parts are often conflicting. So there might well be a part of me that's seeking fame and, infamy, if you like, but another part of me that does think, I wonder if this is the opportunity that I need in order to meet someone that's going to love me forever and that I'm going to love forever. So there's this fantasy that we have around this one perfect soulmate, and I am here to debunk the soulmate theory. Chris, I think the idea that there's one person on the planet, one person that's going to meet all my relational needs is ridiculous. There's thousands of people, thousands of potential partners, probably millions of potential partners. I'm making this up now, but that are going to have a possibility of connecting with. So I think there's something about the fairy tale that has us sign up for the likes of maths or any other sort of dating journey that we tend to go on.
What a great way to finish. Thanks, Sabina, so much for coming on our first episode of CR Live and giving us your psychological insights into not only maths, but the human behavior we're seeing going on. I look forward to chatting with you again soon. Have a great rest of your day. And thanks also to the rest of you who've been online with us here this morning. You've seen some funky things happen. We've had some tech glitches. We've had a few cool things happen. But as you can see, this is unscripted. It's raw. And we've got some really exciting stuff planned for you over the next few weeks. We're going to be going out into the Gippsland area to find businesses and talk to organizations that have not only had to endure the chaos from the beginning of this year with the bushfires, but also how they are also looking to the future and what they need from the tourism industry to get their businesses restarted. We're going to be going out and meeting retail businesses in the street and doing live broadcasts out in the street, meeting businesses to talk about the chaos that's been going on over the last few weeks and how they have flipped their businesses to create new models and new ways of working. We're going to meet real people, find out what they're doing, how they're doing it, and find out what the future looks like, not only here in Australia, but further overseas, and what the next 12 to 18 months look like. For the end of this first episode, a massive thanks to Saxon Speakers, my agent and rep here in Australia, and also to the show division team, who are the crazy guys behind the tech and the AV, and also Andrew Ware, who's one of the camera guys that's helped pull all of this stuff together, and a great friend of mine. Thank you to everyone for being a part of this. I look forward to seeing you on the next edition of CR Live. Go and get yourself a drink and chat soon.